The early evening sunlight poured gently into the first-class cabin of Altair Flight 917 as it departed JFK, casting a golden shimmer across polished wood panels and crystal glasses. Seat 1A, located just beside the window, had always been considered a symbol of elite status and emblem of luxury and respect. But that evening, it became something entirely different. Alyssa Monroe, dressed impeccably in a tailored navy pantsuit, her coiled hair pulled into a sleek knot, quietly settled into the seat. Her leather baga handcrafted piece from Ghana rested delicately in her lap. To any outsider, she might have looked like a successful professional, perhaps a partner at a law firm, or an executive heading to an overseas summit. Few would have guessed she was the founder and CEO of Monrovia Technologies, one of the world's most innovative cybersecurity firms with contracts spanning 3 continents. This flight was not just another commute, it was the final leg of a journey to Geneva, where Alyssa was scheduled to close a multi-billion-dollar merger that would reshape the landscape of data privacy. Every element of her travel had been meticulously arranged, from her pre-ordered meal lobster bisque and tenderloin with a vintage Bordeaux the seat she had chosen for privacy and peace. As she stowed her bag, a young male flight attendant passed by. He greeted the 3 white men behind her, each addressed with warmth and by name. Mr. Bennett, Mr. Cole, Mr. Harris. When his eyes briefly met Alyssa's, all he said was, "Ma'am." No warmth, no acknowledgement of her identity. She smiled faintly, with the kind of grace born from decades of navigating rooms that never expected her presence. A few minutes later, a female flight attendant appeared, blonde, poised, posture textbook perfect. "Good afternoon, ma'am," she said, voice crisp but detached. Her gaze never lingered more than a heartbeat on Alyssa's face. "I pre-order meal lobster bisque, tenderloin, and a glass of 2001 Margaux," Alyssa said politely. "Of course," the woman replied, the corner of her lips curling into what could only be described as a knowing smirk before she walked away. It was the kind of smirk Alyssa had seen her entire life, subtle, dismissive, and laced with quiet judgment. Nearly an hour passed. Alyssa sat reading, her tablet aglow. The sound of metal trays echoed softly down the aisle as meals were distributed. The men behind her received their meals, served with fine linen, polished silver, and attentive smiles. But when the attendant returned to Alyssa, there was no silver, no linen. Just a disposable tray holding a cold chicken sandwich, limp lettuce, a paper napkin, and a plastic cup of water half full. "We apologize, but your selected meal is no longer available," the attendant said flatly. "I have confirmation," Alyssa responded. "The order, the seat, the wine pairing all pre-booked. I have the email and the text confirmation." The attendant shrugged. "The system must have glitched. Happens all the time." She turned and walked away. No apology. No attempt to make it right. Alyssa stared at the tray, without touching it. Behind her, laughter spilled from the men's conversation, wine poured freely, jokes traded about markets and stock picks. Someone toasted to first-class service. No one questioned why the black woman in seat 1A had been handed a sandwich that wouldn't pass in coach. No one saw her. Or maybe they did and simply chose not to care. But Alyssa noticed everything. It wasn't just the meal. It was the absence of her name from any greeting. The lack of eye contact. The cold formality reserved only for her. She didn't flinch. She didn't complain. But her silence wasn't submission, it was calculation. Alyssa Monroe had built her empire from precision and resolve. She'd learned long ago that power didn't always roar. Sometimes it moved in silence until it shattered everything. She tapped the face of her smartwatch. In an office 4,000 miles away on the 47th floor of Monrovia Technologies in Manhattan, her chief of staff, Camille DeWitt, received a 3-word command: Audit Flight 917. Camille didn't hesitate. In under 2 minutes, she accessed their internal analytics system. Monrovia's proprietary software was linked to multiple airline customer experience databases. It flagged employee behavior metrics, complaint histories, even disparities in service across racial and gender demographics. She entered the flight number, Seat 1A, and the attendant's badge ID, Evelyn Hart. A profile loaded instantly. Lead flight attendant, 6 years tenure. 3 prior complaints for service irregularities, 2 internal warnings, and a flagged internal memo quoting or telling a junior colleague. Some folks expect 5-star treatment just because they booked a seat. Keep it simple with the quiet ones. Camille's jaw clenched. She launched a bias analysis using Monrovia's AI tool measuring response times, service patterns, and tone shifts between passengers. The results were damning. Evelyn's politeness disparity was 89% when serving white men versus black women. 31 flights. 17 incidents logged. 0 disciplinary action. Camille compiled the report. Data points, emails, time-coded video stills from onboard surveillance. One particularly grotesque comment buried in a message thread. Don't sweat her. She's not a celeb. Just another quiet ma'am in seat 1A. The final document was encrypted and sent to Altair Airlines executive team, their ethics board, and the airline CEO, Russell Timms. A second copy went to their legal compliance office with a note attached. This is no longer a personnel issue. This is systemic. Back on the plane, Alyssa watched Evelyn move down the aisle, smiling brightly at the men sipping Bordeaux. She didn't look back once, but it didn't matter. Alyssa hadn't touched her sandwich. She wasn't going to. It wasn't about hunger. It was about the truth she needed to feel in her bones, a message they thought they could deliver in silence. You don't belong here. Only they had picked the wrong woman to whisper that to. As Flight 917 touched down in Geneva, the wheels screeched softly, but Alyssa heard something else, the quiet rumble of an empire about to tremble. She stood slowly, gathered her bag, and walked toward the exit. 2 individuals in dark suits waited beyond the gate, one from Altair's European division, the other from legal affairs. Neither spoke. Alyssa passed them with a simple nod and a sentence barely above a whisper. This is only the beginning. Evelyn disembarked through the rear exit, her smile still composed. She had no idea what was coming. Within 30 minutes, Altair's regional office convened an emergency meeting. Camille's report, complete with timeline breakdowns, witness records, and service comparison metrics, was projected on a 60-inch screen in the executive conference room. One phrase stood out across every page: pattern of exclusion. At the same time, Evelyn was escorted to a separate meeting room, asked to hand over her ID, and informed of an ongoing internal investigation. She tried to defend herself. It was a system error. I had no idea, but no one believed her anymore. The next morning, global headlines carried a different story. First-class bias unveiled. The story wasn't about a single tray of food, it was about a pattern, a system, and the woman who refused to be quietly erased. Altair Airlines released a statement by noon. They announced an immediate suspension of Flight 917's entire crew pending full investigation. More importantly, they committed to a full-scale overhaul of their luxury service model, starting with a new division led by external advisors. At the top of the list, Alyssa Monroe. She declined a press conference. Instead, she released a written statement. It was never about a sandwich. It was about a system that no longer gets to decide who belongs. From now on, we do. That week, training programs were rewritten across the travel industry. Hotels, cruise lines, private terminals all reached out for access to Monrovia's bias detection tools. Months later, Altair quietly unveiled a plaque in Seat 1A of every one of their planes. It read, Seat 1, reserved for those who rise above silence. In honor of dignity earned, not given. When Alyssa saw it for the first time on a flight to South Africa, she said nothing. She just fastened her seatbelt, looked out the window, and exhaled. The sky hadn't changed, but the system had, and that was enough.